Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Two Peas in a Podcast with me, Mariam, with a U, and my fellow host, Mariam, with an A. Say Assalamu alaikum, Mariam. Although you just did. In this series, we're going to be talking and trying to summarize the key points of some very popular personal development books, inshallah. So we did Atomic Habits, and then last week we did the 4-Day Work Week, which I think we're going to continue on for the rest of the series because I realise there's quite a lot to get on with. We had a lot of really good interaction last couple of weeks, alhamdulillah, so we're hoping for the same today. So Mariam, tell the listeners how they can get in touch, inshallah.
So you guys can get in touch with us via our Facebook, our YouTube. So you might be listening through the Facebook currently right now. You might be listening to the YouTube live stream. You can also interact with us via Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. But the best shout is probably Facebook and YouTube at the moment. So the details are on the screen now, and you can see that there. So if you can like, share, follow, and subscribe, that would be great.
Inshallah. And so that's good. Every week we'll be giving away a Barakah box to the person that comments with the best productivity tip. And a Barakah box is a luxury graze box filled with Sunnah foods. Mariam, every week you've kindly said some really lovely words about the Barakah box. Since it's biased, if I describe the Barakah box, how would you describe it?
I would describe it as a really beautiful selection of Sunnah foods, and it's not like an exhaustive list because alhamdulillah there's so much like Sunnah options. So a really good selection of Sunnah foods, including dates, which are not just your average dates, but chocolate covered dipped dates, which are amazing. Like you can't go wrong with dates and chocolate. You've got your banana loaf bread. You've got your are they dried figs? Are they classed as dried figs or fresh figs?
They're dried figs, which are really nice. Figs? Yeah.
Yeah.
Bit more of a like intense flavour because they're a bit more because they're dried, so it's just quite nice.
Oh yeah, they're actually really nice. Surprisingly, alhamdulillah. I never realised I actually liked figs as much as when I tried them in the Barakah box.
Me too.
Yeah, I usually have had them like dried fig rolls. Never had fresh, mashallah. So and there's also the olives, green olives with I think herbs in it, and you've got your honey. You've got your walnuts? Yeah, you've got walnuts in there.
Cheesy crackers.
Yeah, such a beautiful selection, mashallah.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you. That's really, really kind. So let's get on with the show. So we'll do a little recap of what we discussed last week. Mariam, could you remember anything from last week? Anything that stood out to you last week or that you think that was beneficial?
Yeah, the first week we were looking at the Atomic Habits by James Clear. And last week we were looking at the 4-hour work week, which was the first thing that shocked me was that it's a 4-hour work week.
It was a 4-day work week, sorry.
Sorry.
4 hours would be incredible. I would be so here for the 4-hour work week, but it was a 4-day work week.
Right, okay, the 4-day work week. And what book was that by? Sorry, what was the author by? Who created that?
Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss. So the things that stood out to me was the two different types of people that you get when it comes to those who want to be, because the whole purpose of the show is about productivity and productivity hacks and self-improvement and management. And so it never really occurred to me like that you could really categorize different types of people into your traditional sort of what they say is part of the boomer generation. Like what those who 50s and 60s and even 70s really. So those who are the like products of post World War II. And those that had more opportunities. And so they look at life in a more traditional lens. Whereas now, like it was so easy to buy a house, relatively speaking, back then. Whereas now we need to be more inventive. And that's the second people who are called the deferrers.
The new rich. So yeah, you're spot on.
The new rich, yes.
The new rich are like they have the new school way of thinking, whereas the deferrers have that, as you said, old school way of thinking. A more traditional style, yeah,
and so we're forced to be more inventive now because the opportunities that like our parents' generation had, I don't believe are the same as what we've got available now. Everything's tougher, it's harder, the population's bigger, the opportunities for resources, and just the competitiveness of life in general. I think it's much harder to sort of attain what our older parents' generation might have had the chance to get.
Yeah, I completely agree. He goes through 8 simple rules that I think we went through most of them. I think we got up to rule 7. And he says, if you want to be part of the new rich, these are the rules to follow. So we'll blast through them just because we got up to 7, I believe, last week. So we'll just quickly go over them again, because the first one was interest and energy are cyclical, i.e. we should be trying to alternate between periods of work, periods of rest, and periods of fun, and having mini retirements throughout our lives instead of working really hard for 40 years, saving for retirement, and then when we're 65 and our joints have gone and our knees have gone and our hips have gone, then, you know, having our retirement and having that time to have, you know, rest, fun, you know, that kind of thing. So that was the first point, which was really, really interesting, and I feel makes a lot more sense. The second one was less is not laziness. And the idea here is to be able to leverage out time so that we can get accelerated results. So I kind of said it was like the saying, work smart, not hard, or work smarter, not harder. I think the older generation, or the generation of the deferrers, have the belief that the harder you grind, the harder you work, the more successful you are, which I think in this day and age with technology and, like you said, more creative ways of working, you don't have to grind really, really hard in order to be successful. There are ways in which you can still be successful, be ambitious, and, you know, have that financial success and security through working smart. So that was point number 2. Point number 3 was the timing is never right. So lots of it. I think this is a lot of us. We're in this kind of mode where we're trapped in the life we have, and the reason we're in this kind of situation is because the time's not quite right. Oh, it's not quite right to, you know, go into business or write the book you want, or get married, or have a baby, or whatever it may be, you know. But Tim Ferriss says that the timing is never ever going to be right, and I think he's right. This is another thing that's very, very common, and I've experienced a lot. And he says you just have to do the thing, get on with it, bite the bullet, and figure out the rest along the way. There's a quote in the book, let me find it. He says, waiting for someday will take your dreams to the grave. So yeah, so that's another point. He says, seek forgiveness rather than permission. That's point number 4, which is pretty self-explanatory. Point number 5 was emphasize your strengths and don't try to focus on your weaknesses. I think we had a bit of a discussion on this that I didn't completely agree, because I think we were saying that you know, it's good to kind of be aware of your weaknesses and work on them. But I think his point here is just to focus more on your strengths and what you're good at, what you're uniquely placed, so you can leverage your time and your skills. So that was point number 5, which I think we discussed. Again, we're just rushing through these just because we've already discussed them last week. So if you want to hear more of a discussion, go back to last week's show, inshallah, and you can hear our discussion on these points. So number 6, it's a nice one actually, and it's money alone is not the solution. Lots of us think that I can't do ABC because I don't have the money. And the whole point of the book is that the reason that we want to be rich generally is not because of the money itself, it's because we want the rich or the comfortable lifestyle that people have, where they can, you know, travel and, you know, buy the things they want. And the big point of the book is that you can still do the stuff you want, or you think you want, but do it cheaper than you think. And then that goes back to, and that, I think we ended on that. And I think, Mariam, I think you're right. It's about those creative solutions. You don't have to be. I think another, just a side point to this, is the book was written quite a few years ago, and one of the criticisms of the book, and something that Tim Ferriss criticizes himself and says that, you know, he's kind of changed his writing style and the language. So even the word rich is kind of a little bit, not cringe, but it's not like the ideal word. But just for the sake of the show and the book, we'll use that word. But I would say like comfortable, successful, that kind of thing. So yeah. So what do you think about that, Mariam? You can actually do the things you want in a cheaper way.
Sorry, do you mind repeating that last bit that you just said?
No, that's fine. So Tim Ferriss in the book is point 6 is that money alone is not the solution. So you can still do what you want, or, you know, tick things off those bucket lists, but you can do it in a lot cheap. You can do it in a way that's a lot cheaper than you think. So things like traveling and things like starting a business, all those kind of things. And I agree. I think it's a lot. It's very different now, as you said before. You know, we've got to be creative in the way that we do things, and there are many ways in which we can gain those experiences without having lots of money. And I think that's what the new rich in inverted commas generation has kind of learned. If you look online, if you look at the experiences of a lot of young people, it's incredible. People of the last generation, or people that kind of fall in the deferrers category, probably have worked all their lives and not had as rich or experienced life as some of the new rich have. And it is, like I said, it does go back to that kind of those creative solutions. So yeah, so do you think that you can still do what you want in a cheaper way?
I think, do you know what? I think you're right, but the only issue that occurs is that you're not taught in this education system about the things that matter in terms of how to manage money. You're not taught anything about taxes. You're like thrown into adulthood, and then you have to figure it all out on your own, and you don't realize until you make the mistakes. And or you get caught into you run into maybe legal trouble, and you don't even realize it because you're not taught about the things that matter in life in the school system. So yes, in theory it works, but practically you have to really scrounge your way through all the legalities, the problems of how to sort of figure out your money, your finance, your matters, your tax, the things that matter in life in terms of being financially stable enough. Even though, yeah, you might not require a lot of money, but being able to find out how to increase your income streams. You're not taught about those types of things. You're just taught about your typical things on the syllabus or in the curriculum in school. And that's where, for me, the root of the problem lies. Is that, yes, in theory, it sounds good, but when it comes to practicalities, you need like another level of education to be able to be taught these things. You're not taught about anything in school that's actually going to help you in life. Like, relatively speaking, I mean, the things that really matter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. So then what do you think? Mariam knows that I'm not a big fan of social media, but due to various projects, I have downloaded a fair few of the apps for business purposes and have discovered TikTok. Now, obviously, it's how one uses these platforms, but I've learned a lot of TikTok. I can't believe I'm saying this and these words are coming out of my mouth. But what do you say about these kind of platforms that provide so much helpful information? Because I completely agree with what you're saying about the knowledge not being taught in schools of finances and that kind of thing. And I agree with that. But what about the next generation? Because a lot of them get their information from social media, which in a lot of ways is a shame as well. I mean, there's a lot of negatives to that way of getting information, but there are a lot of positives as well. As I said, in my experience recently, I must say I've learned a lot about business, productivity, finances, all through TikTok. And I'm not saying it's the only way or it's the best way, but it's definitely helped. What do you say about that?
Actually, before we start talking about TikTok, someone's wrote a comment. Salz and Zucker, it says not true in relation to my point about school doesn't set you up for life, basically.
Okay.
But I don't know where Salz and Zucker, they're a YouTube commenter. I don't know what country they're from, if they're talking about the UK, but certainly in the UK experience, I believe it's true. And I think many people would agree with me that school does not set you up effectively for life. Well, it's nice to see there's a bit of disagreement, but I'm not sure what county, what region, or what even country that this commenter is commenting from. Because obviously, from different countries, you're going to have different experiences that go through. So yeah, coming back to the question in hand, you were asking about TikTok in terms of being an educational platform. Is that right?
Yeah, just providing like helpful information.
Yeah. Do you know what? Everything you need to take with a pinch of salt.
Of course.
Do you know, it comes back to that same discussion that people used to have many years ago. Oh, TV is evil. Oh, it's such a distraction. It's a tool to control. But really, anything can be, the device itself, the platform itself is a neutral body. It just depends on how you want to utilize it and how you use it. You can use things like social media, such as TikTok, for something that might be completely useless. Watching things that are not going to really benefit you in any way, shape, or form. Or you can use it to utilize it as a tool for education in terms of self-education, in which case it is an amazing tool managing your education in that sense.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of the information on, like you said, finances, we're going to talk about passive income later on in the series. A lot of that, that I've kind of not learned, but I guess I already knew about it, but reinforcing that learning and seeing other people's experiences and getting tips from them has definitely been very, very helpful. And then going back to the point as well, I think people aren't kind of set up or educated, but it's the opportunities are still there. So like if you think about Airbnbs now, if we're talking about travel, like in this case, Tim Ferriss is talking about travel, traveling the world, etc. Things like Airbnbs, things like interrailing, things like very budget flights, which we didn't really have back when I was younger. I think this has definitely made traveling a lot easier and a lot more cheaper as well. So yeah, I think when it comes to travel, I think that's probably a little bit easier than people think. Oh, I'd love to travel the world, but I can't because it's too expensive. And actually, like you said, your point about creatively thinking. I think that if you are a bit savvy when it comes to planning and what's the word, bargains, I think you can. Can you think of anything else in this context that people would like to do but can't because they think it's too expensive?
Just want to think about that. We've got some commenters. Another commenter who's Malahat, who on YouTube has said, "I disagree." I'm not sure what they disagree with. Whether they're disagreeing with the other commentator, comment, or they're disagreeing with one of the points that we've raised. But it'll be interesting if you can elaborate, Malahat, about what part you disagree with, and that would be really interesting to have a bit of discussion and dialogue going on.
Yes.
To go back to the point that you made, Mariam, just now, what was that question again that you've just asked?
So the point 6 in the book is describing people that want to do things but they can't because they think it's too expensive. So we've talked about travel, which is one of the examples he gives. Is there anything else you can think of that people would like to do but can't because they think it's too expensive?
Do you know what?
Go on.
Yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to let you have a think, and then I was going to say something. But if you've got an idea, then shoot, go for it.
I would say like further education. Do you know like those people that want to do supplementary maybe degrees? That's the first thing that came to my mind. Is get into like retraining or further educate higher education. So do you know, for example, being able to self-fund a post-grad degree? For me personally, stuff like that would be like really expensive without having to resort to loans, which it might be classed as impermissible. So for me, it would be like getting into higher education to be better yourself. God, to better yourself or get self-improvement, if you know what I mean.
You can tell it's Ramadan. Yeah, no, I agree. The point that Tim Ferriss is trying to make is that these things are easier than we think. And I think you've picked a thing that kind of goes against this point, because unless you can think of something, because I don't know, I can't think of a way that you can access those courses in a cheaper way. I mean, the information's there, but the courses aren't. So that's probably an example that goes against his point, which is fair enough. I was thinking business, actually. I was thinking going into business. People really want to go into business, but they either say it's too expensive or
too risky,
or it goes back to one of the other points where it's not the right time, or I don't have time. And I think now with the whole online world, the digital world that we live in, there are so many ways to start a business that actually doesn't require any money at all, or very little money. Little risk.
Yeah. Do you mind giving an example in regards to like
so I've been
not
looking
even
into I've just been looking into passive income, and this is something very, very new to me that I'm exploring. But the things that I've learned, so take everything I say with a pinch of salt, because I've just been introduced to this new world of kind of passive income and easy business with less risk. But things like self-publishing on Amazon, that's a new thing that I've been looking into. I specialize in children's literature, and I have a few ideas in the pipeline, but the idea of publishing is quite a daunting prospect, and it's quite intimidating. So I think that's something that would put me off and put a lot of other people off. But now with this Amazon, it's something to do with the Amazon Kindle, but it's their self-publishing service where they print on demand. You don't have to keep any of the stock, so you don't have to store it, and they deal with the delivery. They deal with customer service. So that's something that is that seems relatively easy. Also, creating digital content as well. That's something that you can do from the comfort of your home. Yes, it does take time, but it doesn't cost you any money if you have, the skill and the software. So if you have the skill, that's something that you can provide. It's providing a service. So providing digital content, and that kind of thing. Can you think of anything else? So, as I said, I'm quite new to this. But yeah, if you just look around, all my information I've got from online and social media, and as I said, I'm new to it, so maybe perhaps it's something we could talk about in another show once I've kind of delved a little bit deeper, and got some solid tips. But yeah, they make it look so easy. It does look a lot easier. And I think what it is also is we've been working from home a lot, obviously due to the pandemic, and I think we, as a society, we've learned that actually there's a lot we can do from our home, and just with very few resources. So yeah, I think this is going to be a massive turning point in the way we work and how we make money, if that makes sense.
Yeah, do you know what that just reminds me, because someone's put a comment on here, right? Let me just bring it up. So Malahat, when I asked, like, what part do you disagree with? They've wrote, I think TikTok can't be a source of education; it's a source of entertainment. But like I said, it depends on what you want to use it for, whatever you use the platform for. So, for example, a lot of people use TikTok for business, and what I mean by that is that you've got the increase of influencers on the rise, and everyone is trying to sell you something these days.
Yeah.
So it can be not even just an entertainment platform. It's not just an educational platform on how to do things and how to learn about things. Not just like a food blogging sort of platform. It's like so much is on there. And there's also a business platform, where people. Yeah, and so sorry. Anatomy of a Student is wrote. It fully depends on what people you follow on TikTok. Exactly, that's exactly what we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think coming back to the point that you were making about or how. What was that point that you were making? Sorry, I'm trying to
about the one related to the comment is that you can actually use these social media platforms as a way to increase your knowledge on how to make money.
Yes.
And that kind of thing.
So I think in this day and age, do you know how you said before, like you don't really need necessarily a startup fund, like an investment plowed into a business with the risk, or is it going to fail or is it going to succeed? Like Dragon's Den style. Oh, I need like £50,000 to start this business. I think in this day and age, if you can exploit your social media platforms, build up that, and I say this in quotation marks, influencer sort of vibe. You can become one of those people that ends up selling products to other people. And there's something really interesting I came across the other day, probably on TikTok actually, can't remember. But basically, what they were saying is that, do you need to make a product for your customers, or do you need customers for a product that you're going to make? So it's one of those sort of questions that makes you think, do you have a customer base already in mind that you want to target audience, and then you create a product around that, or you fulfill the product that they need, a certain group of people that you think need a certain product, or do you create a product with the hope that you're going to get a customer base, a target audience that are going to want it? So create something that you need, or create something that you want, and then get the customers that way, if that makes sense. And it's a very good way to exploit it. But again, it takes do you know what? It's not just about being behind the camera, or in front of the camera, sorry, in front of the lens. When you go on like things, looking at hacks and how to get into business and income streams, people can be making, 6-figure incomes of stuff like managing YouTube channels behind the scenes, managing marketing, social media, of so many YouTube channels without even needing to be in front of a camera, and they can be making so much income. And this is just, there's so many opportunities out there. It's like, where do you start? And it can become such a, what's the word, bamboozlement. It can become overwhelming to think, where can you even begin in this journey, because the market is so saturated with people trying to sell us products all the time. It's never ending. There's always some sort of endorsement, advertisement being chucked out by our influencers, and you can just all it does, all you have to do is look at the comments and on people's YouTube channels and stuff like that, and be like, oh, all you do now is sell things. All you do now is sell things. So I think it's about striking a balance between being yourself online to a certain degree, but also providing a service that people want or need.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's still relatively new. I mean, it's very saturated for sure, but it's still very new. So I think that's why this bombardment of information and this bamboozlement, as you said, occurs, because it's really only just this generation really that's kind of jumped in and started to make money off, the online world, as it were. So I think it's something to look into, and as I said, something that's going to drastically change the way we work, especially as I said, due to the pandemic. I think it would have anyway, to be honest, the way that the online world and the online business world was growing, but due to the pandemic, I think now people have been given the gift of time, but also they've been restricted in a way that they can only really do things online. I think there's definitely going to be a shift there. So definitely, I mean, it's saturated, but it's still early days, I think. So it's definitely something to look into. And we talked about making money in business, and we've kind of gone off on a tangent, but we mentioned passive income as well. Passive income, this is something you can do while still you're maintaining your day job, and keeping that, and keeping your security nets in that sense, if you still weren't quite ready to make the jump, which inshallah will encourage you to do later with the book. And so it's definitely, passive income is making money while you basically you just do one thing. You do the thing, whatever it may be, create a project. It could be a resource, a book, a piece of digital content. You put it out there. You've done that one-off bit of work, but then it makes money for you. So you are making money in your sleep, essentially. And as I said, something I'm looking into, something we'll discuss in another show if we have the opportunity, inshallah. But passive income is something else that I definitely encourage people to look into, because it's another stream that we can tap into without it really, dramatically changing our life. So yeah, something else I learned on TikTok. I can't believe these words. I would put my nose up to TikTok people, but it's because my first experiences were, as the commenter said, that of entertainment. I hadn't really discovered the business part until I, started business myself and realized that there was such a wealth of information out there, and super, super beneficial. So yeah, so that was the last point, just to go over that again. Money alone is not the solution, and lots of us can still do things that we want with very little money. So that's Tim Ferriss's 6th point. So yeah, and that leads us nicely onto the next point, which is point number 7. Relative income matters far more than absolute income. So relative income looks at both money and time crucially as being resources, whereas the old school deferrers, where it's just to think about money as a resource. This is a difference actually between my two parents. This is really interesting. And I think it's also a generational difference as well. Because my dad's very much money is the main resource. And my mum is very much, no, actually, time is also a resource. So, for example, he can't understand why she would opt for, try to think of a convenience thing, like a convenient cooking hack, for example. I don't know. I can think of a really lame example, like buying a bag of chopped onions, or I don't know, whatever it may be, or ground garlic. This is a very small, trivial example, but I think you get the point. And she can't understand why he would drive 2 hours away to get a bargain. So the point here is the deferrers think only money is the only resource, whereas the new rich think that time is. And Mariam knows that time for me is so important. We're going to be held accountable for every hour that we have, and time is a big, big, big resource. As the saying goes, time is money as well, as the old saying. So yeah, so do you have anything to say about that, Mariam? Do you agree?
Yeah, time definitely is money. I mean, when you were describing your dad, I was just thinking about my mum.
Yeah.
Like, two different mentalities as well. Your dad
Yeah.
sounds like my mum in the sense of rather shop around for like the best deals for all her like shopping needs. Whereas me, my time is so valuable that I'd rather just, bish bash bosh go into one shop, get everything, even if some things aren't as cheap as they might be in a different shop. If it's not on my way going to get like a cheaper product, then I don't really care because I don't have the time in my
Mhm.
day, my life to want to just shop around for to save like a couple of pound. For
Yeah.
me, that's not worth it. Whereas for some people, that's exactly what they value.
Mhm.
And it just reminds me, like what you place value in life is very different for a lot of people. When
Mhm.
I worked in a call center, I used to work in a cancellations department for a
Mhm.
company. So customers were ringing up to cancel their product, and we had to rebuild the value of the products that they were wanting to cancel to make them not want to cancel, basically. So we had to build the value up to them again, because some people
Mhm.
just were looking at the figure of their bank account and how much money was coming out. Whereas for some
Mhm.
people, they were like, oh, do you know what? Actually, yeah, this product is worth it. It's much better than before. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pause the show and I'm going to wait for Mariam to rejoin the stream. So, guys, bear with us. We'll be back in just a few moments' time. Hello, Assalamu alaikum, Mariam. Can you hear
Hello.
me?
Sorry, we lost you for a second there. Carry on.
No, actually, we lost you. You left the stream.
Yeah. Sorry. That's what I meant. I lost myself. Carry on. Sorry.
No, I was just saying basically we had to you have to rebuild the value for some people of what's important to them, because not everyone finds that the time is more important than money. Money's more important than time. Value is very particular to different people. Actually, that's
Mhm.
a good question for commenters. For people who are listening, what do you find more valuable, time, money, or anything else? What's value for money for you, so to speak. So we've got some sort of comments here coming back to. I'm going to put one on the screen. Anatomy for Students has said, time learning how to potentially get viral on TikTok. You can always get followers very quickly again. So yeah, some people find that the time that they spend in terms of education, teaching themselves skills to upskill themselves. So do you know
Mhm.
some people can do a degree,
Mhm.
for example, and then realize, oh, do you know what? My skills are going to be better utilized elsewhere. I need to
Mhm.
re-educate myself. I need to upskill myself, so more suitable for this world, modern world. And then they have to invest in themselves all over again, even after spending thousands of pounds on maybe like a university degree,
Yeah.
just to be able to make it, so to speak, in this life. Um,
Yeah.
so that's like another example that we can sort of utilize there.
Yeah, it's not like back in the day where you would, you train for one thing and you would do that thing probably till retirement. It's completely different now. And yeah, I definitely agree, that there's a lot of us trying to up the skill, as you said. So yeah, that's definitely true. So that was the seventh point. I'm trying to think of other examples really. I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. And it's definitely, I think it's definitely a generational thing. I think the deferrers do value money more, but even the value of money. I mean, going back to the last point where we can do a lot more with a lot less money. So I agree that for me, definitely, time is a lot more valuable to me than money. So yeah, so that was point number 7. Point number 8 is de-stress is bad, eustress is good. I don't know where the word eustress comes from, but he explains in the book that not de-stress, sorry, distress. Distress is it's the type of harmful stress that over a long amount of time makes us weaker. So we're not distresses, but he explains eustress as that stretch zone where we're just stepping out of our comfort zone, but we're not fully in panic mode or in distress mode. So eustress is what helps us grow, and distress is what causes problems further down the line. So basically, you know, go move out of your comfort zone is what he's trying to say. So it's true. I think a lot of us, and I think that's kind of the idea of the book, is a lot of us are comfortable in our safe zone. We don't want to take many risks. There are so many excuses, like the excuse of like we don't have enough money, we don't have enough time, now's not the right time. So he really pushes the idea of moving out of our comfort zone and taking the risk with whatever it may be, you know, going to that, do that further education, do that course, or to start that business, or to change jobs. I know a lot of people are in jobs that they aren't happy with, and it is difficult. I know within the book we're talking about it, and a lot of these things are easier said than done. And later on, he does go on to kind of give you tips on how to actually, you know, become the new rich. But once you move out of your comfort zone, I think once you make that jump, once you bite the bullet, it's all about making the first step. Once you made the first step, that's the hardest part. So yeah, so distress is bad, eustress is good. Move out of your comfort zone. Mariam, what do you have to say about that? Do you agree, disagree? Have you any extra points to make on that?
Distress versus eustress.
Yeah, EU stress. So basically,
Eustress.
yeah, it's spelled EUSTRESS. So basically, the idea that we should all move out of our comfort zone and go to a point that isn't distressing, that isn't like, doesn't take us fully into panic mode, but literally gets us dancing over the line, just before the line of distress. So we move out of our comfort zone.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable in life, you're not going to be motivated or disciplined to want to progress, to be better than who you are yesterday, at least, at the
Yeah.
very least. When you get too comfortable in life, I think, yeah, you can end up being very static, and you can blink and 10 years goes by and you don't even realize that, you know, your time is vanishing right in front of your eyes. And until you really hold yourself accountable and ask yourself, what have I really achieved? That can be a very scary question. So inching forward bit by bit every day, doing something to educate yourself, to improve yourself. I definitely think you're going to be heading in the right direction after that.
Yeah, it's kind of what you said last week as well about that survey that was done on people that were passing away or at the end of their life and the regrets that they had. And from what I can remember, you were saying that, correct me if I'm wrong, that some of the things that they regretted was not taking the risks, you know, not trying something new. There were two versions, because you mentioned that you had seen a survey and I had seen a survey as well. So this may have been from what I had read, but certainly in one of them there was one of the most common things that came up was we regretted not taking that risk, or not, you know, or just, you know, making that move and just staying stagnant, staying in our comfort zone. But you're right, time flies, and you know, before you know it, you've been there for years and years, because as you said, you know, you made those excuses that the time wasn't right, or you know, there's a million excuses one can make. And obviously, as I said before, we know it's difficult, but Tim in the book he tries to explain that it's a lot easier than you think. So yeah, move out of your comfort zone. Can you give any examples, Mariam? I know a lot of people that are in jobs and the job is fine and it's comfortable and it's safe, but they're not happy in it. What do you recommend? Because I know, again, it's a generational thing. I know parents that would be like, this is the worst advice. You should stick where it's safe, where you're comfortable, you know, because you have that security, and risk is bad because, you know, it's not responsible. What would you say to those people, the deferrers, that
I
would
would
argue
say,
against
you know
that?
what, there's that phrase that's very like, not common, but very well known, and they say that if you find a job that you absolutely love, or you can do what you love for a living, right, you'll never work a day in your life again, because
Spot
you're
on.
getting paid to do what you love. You're getting
Yeah.
paid to literally do what you love to do anyways. What you do it free if you could.
Yeah.
You getting paid for it means that you're never going to really work a day in your life. Whereas if you are stuck at a dead end job, so to speak, that is there, it's comfortable enough for you to pay the bills, but that's literally it. You're going to pay your bills and just die one day. What
Yeah.
type of life is that? Is that a fulfilling life? Do you feel fulfilled by it? Do you feel completed by it? Or do you feel like there's more to your life than just to, you know, pay bills, you know, and that's it, and die at the end of the day? um,
Yes.
so when you can do something that you really want to put your heart, your soul, your energy into it, then that's, for me, is going to be one of the steps to living a more fulfilling life. And hence then why, yes, you should be able to, you should have a pinch of fear, obviously, because the risk might not pay off. If you want to invest in yourself at the age of 35, 40 years old, you take a complete career change direction. Oh my God, sorry, I can't speak. You take a complete different direction, you know, in your career change. And it could be a risk that does pay off or doesn't pay off, but might be if you don't try it, you will always gonna regret thinking, what if I did this? What if I could have done that? You know, why didn't I start sooner? Because it could turn into something so amazing. And at least you know that if that fails, that risk that you want to take in terms of a change in your life, then at least you know you can turn back in your life at the end of your life and say, do you know what, I tried. I did try. I'm not going to regret not trying. If that
Yeah,
makes sense.
I completely agree. And the point, you know, the point the deferrers think of working in a job that is safe is to have a better life. They think, okay, so I'm in a safe job, I'm in a secure job, therefore I have a better life. And I'm making a better life for myself. But you're not really, because the quality of your life is probably not great because you're not enjoying your job. You're not looking forward to it. The majority of your time is spent at work. So it defeats the purpose of, you know, trying to make a better life for yourself, because you're stuck in a job that you don't like. Whereas, yeah, you could take that risk, or go for a job that perhaps, for example, doesn't pay as much, but your quality of life will be so much better. Your health will be better physically, mentally, because you're in a job that you enjoy. So, you know, the quality of life is not a result of having a better paid job. It's having a job, as you said, that you would do for free. So yeah, definitely. I definitely think stepping out of your comfort zone. Yeah. And obviously, as we say, as I've said numerous times, these things are easier said than done. And, you know, take care in what you do. Don't be completely irresponsible and be like, I'm quitting with no plan. Have a plan. There are ways in which you just, you know, you can get information, and you can do things. But I definitely think stepping out of your comfort zone just keeps life more interesting. It provides for more opportunities, for a better quality of life. So yeah, so that was his last point. Point 8: distress is bad, eustress is good. Step out of your comfort zone. So that all that part, those 8 points were the first key ideas of the book. So how to join the new rich, or the new school way of approaching life. And for the rest of the book, he talks about the 4-part method of getting to this point. So now he's explained like the 8 points, and now he's going to explain how to get to them. And this follows the acronym DEAL, deal. So yeah, so before we move on to that 4-point method, sorry, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I've just been displaying them as we go along. So are you able to see them, like when they're on?
I'm afraid. If you could read them out, that would be great. Sorry, I'm not the most tech person. I'm talking about online world and technology. And oh yes, I can read it now. Anatomy of a Student. Is that the new one?
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
Anatomy of a Student. If you have a skill, post tutorials and teach it on Skillshare. You can get paid a lot of money passively over time. It's a great investment and spreads knowledge. That's a fantastic tip. I've seen that actually around. Oh, they continue to say Google and Facebook have a free course for learning Google and Facebook ads, which is extremely useful to monetize. They also give an official certificate, diploma type of qualification. Yeah, brilliant. That is a very, very, very good tip. I've actually seen that. Rasha Taysir says anatomy.
can you tell us more?
Oh,
Anatomy.
I'm talking about the another.
You seem to be on the ball, right? Whoever you are, you're on the ball with today's ideas. I
Yeah,
think if you're local to Newcastle, I think you're going to be one of those who are going to be winning that Baraka box. It seems like
yeah,
it.
that's it. That was a brilliant comment. Any more comments? Because they're flashing up on here, so I'm not quite sure. Any new comments?
Yeah, just some from earlier on, from the discussion that we were having earlier on. I was showing them on screen as before. I'll replay them. So, for example, Haida has put, I think TikTok is a reflection of the internet itself, mostly useless time-wasting stuff, but there will be that small percentage of useful stuff. And I think, just like someone else mentioned before, it really depends on what you follow. Like, you can utilize your time for good, or you can utilize it for something that's productive, or you can utilize it, well, not utilize it, you can just waste it, right? You can just completely waste your time. And everyone everyone's given the same amount of time in the day, 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
It depends how much barakah you want to obtain from your day and what you're going to do for the sake of Allah. So whether you want to invest in yourself for the sake of Allah, you're going to feel more blessings of your time that way.
Yeah, definitely. Jazakallah khair for your comments. Really, really brilliant comments this week. But yeah, so moving on to the acronym DEAL. So the D in DEAL stands for define. So Tim Ferriss has the idea here that if you want to be part of the new rich, it's worth defining your fears, and also defining your dreams and defining what you actually want to get out of life. So I think that's it. I think, a lot of us, many people have ideas. I kind of fall into the category of ideas person, but find it tricky to actually execute them. But a lot of people, you might be listening and are kind of motivated now to actually make a move, but haven't really thought about it, so don't have any ideas. So I think that first thing, I guess, it's kind of planning, and defining what you actually want to get out of life. Tim Ferriss talks about the idea of mitigating fear. So he says that it's the fear that's stopping us trying out new things. I think he's completely right. I mean, we kind of discussed this before within the other points, but he says most of us would rather be unhappy than uncertain. We're so scared of the unknown, leaving our job or trying out this new thing or that new thing or this new business, that even if we're unhappy where we are right now, we prefer it. We would prefer the certainty of being unhappy rather than the uncertainty of trying something new. He says that if you want to be part of the new rich, then you want to flip that and instead choose uncertainty over unhappiness. So, for example, you'd rather be uncertain than unhappy. What do you think about that, Mariam? He's saying fear is what's stopping us from doing things, and we'd rather be unhappy than take the risk of being uncertain. Makes sense.
I think it's quite depressing, actually. Do you know when you've
It really is. But I think it's depressing because it's very, very accurate of a lot of people's lives.
Do you know what one of the commentators, Haida, has put? Sometimes it's difficult to actually take the first few steps when you have so many ideas in your mind, even if they're half-cooked ideas. So it can be hard to figure out which route to take the first step in. So I think it comes back to that point of being overwhelmed with all the opportunities that you could take your life down, that you could take your life towards. And hence why most people might actually just be happy, not happy, but content to just stay in an unhappy role in life because they are certain that they're going to be able to count on a certain amount of income. Whereas if the more risks you take, the more happier you might be emotionally, but not feeling stable enough in your finances, which could then lead to unhappiness. An Anatomy for Student has just wrote, one of the hardest things to do is getting started, in caps locks. Try the 5-minute starter rule. Whatever you have that you want to do, put aside all distractions and just spend 5 minutes to start it off. I think that's a really, really
That
good
is a fantastic tip. Was that the same person that
yeah, Anatomy for Student.
brilliant.
And also, there's another one, that they put, make a list of all your ideas, so something that you were saying before as well. Then rule which is the easiest to start. I've actually heard that tip before.
Yeah.
Once you complete one project, quotation marks, move on to the next. Actually, these are really good tips.
These are fantastic. You guys are on the ball, mashallah. It's as if you read the book, because I was going to say later on he does give you exercises on how to organize your ideas and how to get started. So that's in the book as well, and we're going to touch upon them later on. So Jazakallah khair, that brilliant comments, like spot on, especially with the one regarding just starting. Getting started is the hardest thing you will do. You think that that's the easiest. Like getting started is easy, and then it can get harder and harder. But actually, getting started is the hardest thing. Once you've started, you've taken the biggest step. You figure it along the way. I kind of fall guilty of this, where I'm an over planner. So in the past, I haven't, gone through with ideas because I've wanted everything to be planned out. Whereas you can't really do that, especially when it comes to businesses and various projects, because you have to kind of cross certain bridges when you get to them. There are problems that you probably won't have thought of that will crop up, and you've got to problem solve along the way, as is life, I guess. And so when I learned and I read about just getting started, it was the best thing ever. Honestly, I've started so many of my projects through this last year just due to that tip. Some of them have worked, some of them haven't worked, but I don't regret doing any of them, and I've learned a lot from them. So I've benefited them, even if they haven't exactly launched or taken off the the ground. I've definitely learned from them. So yeah, I would definitely say that getting started, just get started, like whatever it may be. If it's a blog, if it's a business, just what do you call it? What's the word? I'm so not a tech person. Just create the page. Create the page, get the username, get the domain name, just get started. Just do something today, even if it's just write down a quick plan of what you want, put down some ideas. But starting is definitely like the best thing you can do is just start. That was a big rant about starting, but it's very, very important. But yeah, but yeah, that's true. But the point we were talking about deal, yes, we were talking about mitigating fear. So yeah, it is really, really sad that a lot of people would rather be uncertain than unhappy. But he has a list of questions here in the book that are really useful for us to ask ourselves. I don't actually follow all of them, but I have incorporated them into kind of my way of thinking. So whenever I find myself not doing something because I might be afraid of the risk or what could happen, I do find myself running through these questions, and usually it results in me realizing that I'm not doing them not because of these excuses that I've made up, or it's just because I'm scared, and then I just need to like bite the bullet and do it. So let's go through the questions. How long have we got? 8 minutes. Okay. So the questions are: number 1, what are you not doing because you're scared? Question 2, what are you missing out on by not doing those things? Question 3, why aren't you doing these things? Question 4, what's the absolute worst case scenario? This for me is one of the biggest ones, and it's something that I'm the eldest of 5 siblings. So when I'm advising my siblings or even friends, it's such one of the main mottos of my life is, what's the worst that can happen? And when you actually answer that question, it's not as bad as you think. So that was number 4. What's the absolute worst case scenario? Number 5 is, if the worst happened, how would you fix it? And the final question is, if you wanted to go back to how things were before you made the change, how would you do it? So yeah, so I think those are a list of questions. If you have ideas and you're not doing them for any reason, you have reasons, you have excuses, you know that you're scared, ask yourself these questions, answer them in the context of this idea, and see how you feel afterwards, because I definitely find that it helps. Asking yourself, a lot of the time, a lot of us are overthinkers, and sometimes I think the consequences are going to be we build them up to be a lot bigger than they actually are. And if we actually stop to think about what's the worst that can happen, it's not actually that bad. What do you think, Mariam?
Those questions. What do I think of which question? That's a question.
All of them, but I think for me, if the main one is, what's the absolute worst case scenario? What's the worst that can happen?
That's a good. Do you know what? I quite like it. It's a good motto to live by, really. What's the worst that can happen? Because sometimes we have a tendency to focus on the negatives as humans, don't we? Like, a worst case scenario. Oh no! But then sometimes it turns out that actually your worst fears are not going to be realized.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to become a reality. So yeah, really, what is the worst that's going to happen, and is it going to happen? What's the likelihood? Just go with it. Go with the flow. For me, I just like go with the flow of life. It just doesn't matter anymore. When you get to a certain age, it's just like it does not matter anymore. Just get on with your life.
Yeah. Go on.
Sorry. Yeah. Just like come to the commenters. Oh, I can't even say that word. Haida has put, who still likes to use traditional checklists, i.e., using pen and paper? Call me old school, but I just like the satisfaction of checking off a task this way. So yeah,
I love that. I love a pen and paper and checking things out. There's nothing more satisfying than checking something off.
Exactly. Where are they gone? Anatomy of a Student has said, they live in Southeast London, so the price can go to someone who lives closer. Simply makes it enough for me, and that's enough for me. May Allah grant you the best, whoever you are, Anatomy of a Student. Jazakallah khair. give you the best in this life and the next, and accept your Ramadan from you.
Ameen, ameen.
They've also added traditional checklists work better for me than anything else. So yeah, because you know what? It's probably that psychology of being able to physically see you crossing something off your list. For me, that does help. And you get that satisfaction of being able to cross it off, and it's like, yes, done. Don't have to think about it again.
Yeah.
Brain space. And they've also continued to write, there is satisfaction to crossing off things on your list, and it motivates you to go further and brings a sense of being content. Definitely, that's what you were saying as well. We've got Breezy B. I think that's one of our sisters that we know.
Yeah, mashallah.
We are truly our biggest roadblocks. That is such a valid point there, actually. Do you know how you said before about that question you were asking, oh, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Really, our own, sometimes we are our own pushing, we can push us in the right direction, but we're also our own, roadblock. We're the ones that hold ourselves back as well. Just comments flying in as well, so I just want to get through them. Also feel like you were productive on the day. So I think this is coming back to the checklist idea. You feel productive on the day when you can cross off almost everything on your list, and you don't feel like the day was wasted. And I think that's a point that we discussed last week, about having that sense of accomplishment. We shouldn't diminish our accomplishments, even if you didn't set out to achieve like a huge goal, like I want to write a chapter of a book today. Even if you only manage to, for example, pencil in an outline of what you want to do, you're inching in the right direction. You're inching towards progress, because progress is not overnight. You have to make it work to make it happen.
It's true. And also with the list, it's not just a checking off, but within the creating of the list, you have a plan, and it's always about planning. Fail to plan, plan to fail. It's another motto of my life, and it's true. If you don't have a why, if you don't have a plan, you're gonna have this time. You're gonna have the motivation, but you're not gonna have a direction or a plan. So making a list is not just about the satisfaction of ticking it off, but it's about having that plan and having that list. And something, inshallah, we'll go on to in future shows is time blocking, making lists, making plans, when to make them, how to make them, and that kind of thing. So yeah, definitely that. Another point I just wanted to quickly comment on, one of the commenters was about worst case scenario. I can't remember. I was listening to a speaker and they were talking about people that worry about all the bad things that can happen, suffer twice. So they suffer the first time because they're worrying about it, and then if it actually happens, they suffer again. So they're actually having double the struggle because they're worrying so much about something that potentially could happen or potentially couldn't happen. So that's something with regards to people that are always focusing on the negatives, as you say.
We've got Marium Zamir on the comments saying, yeah, it's good to work towards a goal. And Haider has jumped back in and said, since we all agree on manual checklists, like physical ones, is it safe to assume we all have pen and paper shopping lists too? I'm going to speak, yes, definitely. I'll use both, like a digital shopping list plus a physical one, because it's just easier sometimes.
Yeah.
Chucking it in your basket, but that's a nice little light-hearted sort of viewpoint there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do like a shopping list. We should really do a show. This is something that I haven't quite yet gotten into, but it's something that a lot of my friends do, and I would love to, is bullet journaling. So I don't know if the commenter Haider has discovered or knows about bullet journaling, but if you love lists, you love bullet journaling. So something to look into. I think it's next week or second to last show or last show. I'm completely losing track.
No, I think we've still got at least hold on. So next week is going to be May, isn't it? Yes. So we've got 2 more shows left.
2 more shows. Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll wrap up now. We will do the we will finish the 4-day work week, and then for the last week, if listeners have any ideas of what you would like us to discuss, we could do that. Or what we could do is a summary of books that we think are we recommend even. So we could make a list of books that we recommend, and we can just kind of recommend them rather than summarizing them. Share your ideas with what you'd like to hear, and inshallah we'll do that. So yeah, that's all from us today.
Just to last 3 comments. Haider goes, thank you, I will look into bullet journals. Noor Khair has said, having a goal too is a struggle, lol.
Yeah.
and lastly, Anatomy for Students has wrote, it's like a race. If you get tired, it's better to jog or at least walk towards the finish line. Which reminds me of the hadith about crawling towards Allah. I was trying to paraphrase it here, but basically don't give up. Like when it comes to our Islam, for example, doesn't matter how hard it is you find in life, never give up, never abandon your steps towards Allah. So if it's like a race, you get tired, it's better to jog or at least walk or even crawl to the finish line, because progress is progress regardless of how slow or fast, as long as you don't give up or go backwards. So
Jazakallah khair for that comment. And she's also there's a few more comments coming in.
Yeah.
But I think that's all for now, inshallah. We'll wrap up. Thank you so much for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And we'll see you next week, inshallah. Mariam?